I never expected a single act of kindness at the gas station would lead to a life-changing moment. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was an ordinary Tuesday, or at least I thought it was. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows. I could smell the scent of gasoline wafting in the air, blending with the stale chips and sweet drinks from the store. My heart raced, not from excitement, but from the weight of my life pressing down on me that I leaned against my car, exhausted. My hands shook as I rummaged through my purse for change. I felt like the walls were closing in, and the world was moving too fast. Just then, a stranger approached. A gentle smile creased his face. He handed me a crumpled bill, his blue eyes sparkling with warmth. "Here, take this. You look like you could use it." That I remember the way my chest tightened. I was not used to kindness. I was too deep in my own struggles, debt, heartbreak, the feeling of being utterly lost. I blinked back tears. Who was this man? Why was he helping me? It felt surreal, like a scene pulled from a movie. But there was something more in the air. A tension that made my skin prickle. I noticed a shadow creeping behind him, a figure lurking in the distance. My instincts screamed danger. Was he a good Samaritan, or was this all part of something bigger? The sky darkened, and I felt an eerie chill sweep over the gas station, chilling the back of my neck. The world seemed to hold its breath that I glanced around, caught between gratitude and suspicion. The gas station creaked under the silence, whispering secrets I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. I could sense eyes watching from the store, curious glances flicking my way. Was it judgment? Was he somehow connected to them? Would this act of kindness seal my fate? I took the bill, trembling. "Thank you, but why?" Just as the words left my mouth, I noticed the stranger's expression change. His smile faded, shoulders stiffening. "Just, trust me," he said, the warmth in his voice evaporating. My heart raced faster, pounding in my chest like a drum, drowning out everything else. I still didn't know who he was or what his intentions were. But the moment hung in the air, thick and palpable. My grip on the bill felt like a lifeline, yet I was also clutching a grenade. I had no idea if I was about to explode or be set free. Suddenly, he turned and began to walk away, disappearing into the shadows. I called after him, desperation clawing at my throat, "Wait. Why are you doing this?" Just then, a sudden roar filled the air. A motorcycle screeched into the lot, tires burning as it halted nearby. The figure from my periphery raced forward. My heart sank. Everything was spiraling. What did I get myself into? And in that moment, surrounded by chaos and confusion, I realized my life was about to change forever. I just hadn't learned how yet. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The motorcycle roared to life as its rider, the shadow from before, leapt off with a purposeful stride. He was clad in black leather, his helmet glistening under the flickering gas station lights. For a moment, dread washed over me, mixing with confusion. Was this man a friend or foe? His posture was tense, and he cast a wary glance in the direction of the stranger who had just helped me. With my heart racing, I crumpled the bill in my hand, feeling the weight of uncertainty press down on me. I wanted to call back the blue-eyed stranger, to understand Moretto, tether myself to the kindness he had offered, not just for the money, but for the hope that flickered within it. But as I stood frozen, the leather-clad figure moved closer, his intentions unclear. "Are you okay?" The sudden softness of his voice took me by surprise. It was at odds with the fierce exterior he wore. He lifted his helmet, revealing a young man with deep brown eyes, filled with concern. I saw you over here. You looked like you needed help. That I opened my mouth to speak, unsure of what to say. The events of the last few moments felt jumbled in my mind like I was living inside a storm. My instinct was to run, yet there was something reassuring in his gaze that kept me rooted in place. That I am fine, I lied, my voice shaky. I chanced to glance back at the gas station. The blue-eyed stranger had disappeared into thin air, swallowed by the night. I felt the loss of that fleeting warmth like I was saying goodbye to a flickering candle, snuffed out too quickly. The biker studied me intently, his brow furrowed. You were just given money by a stranger, and I'd say that's a good enough reason to check if you're okay. He gestured toward the small convenience store. You need a ride? I can take you somewhere safe, somewhere safe. The idea was appealing, more than I wanted to admit. Desperation pooled in my stomach like a stone, yet the offer sounded too good to be true. Why would you do that? I asked, caution wrapping around my words. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that held promise but also sadness, as if he understood pain in ways that left marks on the soul. Because everyone deserves help sometimes. I've been where you are. And if I can do something to change that, I will. There it was, the shared connection of struggle, the flicker of warmth in the coldness of our precarious circumstances. A tiny lifeboat amid the waves of despair crashing all around. I hesitated, glancing back once more at the gas station. But all I saw were shadows, and I realized that whatever had lingered behind me was not going to resolve the uncertainty I felt inside. Finally, a flicker of hope dared to spark in my chest. Okay, I said, taking a breath. I'll take that ride. He extended a hand to me, and I grasped it, feeling the warmth of humanity, a transient assurance that perhaps there was still goodness left in the world. I climbed onto the motorcycle, wrapping my arms around his waist. The engine roared to life, vibrating against my palms, a reminder of this unexpected adventure. We sped away from the gas station, the world blurring by. There was an exhilarating freedom in the wind rushing past me, brushing away the fear that had clung too tightly to my heart. I allowed myself to relax, even as the shadows of doubt lingered in the unknown. The lingering question of who I could trust remained unanswered. With the lights of the gas station fading into the distance, we reached an empty road lined with old trees. The bikers slowed down, finally stopping at a small diner overlooking a river. The neon sign buzzed against the twilight, casting a bright glow that seemed to beckon us. This is a good place to grab a coffee and talk, he said, taking off his helmet and running a hand through his tousled hair. As he glanced at me, I could see the resolve in his eyes. Before I could respond, the front door of the diner swung open, and an older woman emerged, her expression transforming from warmth to alarm as she approached us. What are you doing here? I told you to stay away from him. Her voice trembled, sharp as ice along. My skin, the biker froze, his eyes widening in surprise, and I felt my breath hitch in my throat as everything around me became eerily silent. Who? I stammered, the urgency of the moment pressing down on me like shadows closing in. Just as the elderly woman opened her mouth to speak, a piercing scream echoed from the direction of the gas station, shattering the quiet night. Without thinking, I spun on my heel, dread pooling inside me like molten lead. The truth lingered within the air, heavy and suffocating. What had I stumbled into? What darkness had chased that flicker of light away? The scream dissolved into the night, a haunting echo that slashed through the fragile tension that enveloped us. I was rooted to the ground, paralyzed as my heart galloped in sheer horror. The diner, once a beacon of comfort, felt like a prison, the walls closing in around me. The biker turned abruptly, his expression a mask of shock and determination. Stay here, he commanded, his voice firm yet laced with an urgency that made me tremble. I clutched the sides of my jacket, both fearful of the unknown and captivated by the fierce protectiveness in his tone. What if I began, but before I could finish, he was already racing toward the sound, propelled by some internal motor that defied the danger that lay ahead. I was torn between the desire to follow and the instinct to hide away in the safety of the diner. A flicker of movement caught my eye as the woman's anxious form wobbled beside me. You shouldn't have gotten involved with him, she whispered, her pale hands wringing together. He's not what you think. Then what is he? I demanded, desperation tinging my voice. I was desperate for clarity, for the pieces of this puzzle to fall into place when just moments ago I had believed I was making a crucial decision towards safety. What's happening? Her gaze was distant, as if she was trapped in a different memory, one full of pain that seeped through the air like heavy fog. There are things you don't understand about this town. About the people in it. And sometimes, kindness is just a mask for something darker. Her words hung between us, thickening with the weight of ominous secrets. I was torn, my thoughts racing like the wind that had just whipped through my hair on the motorcycle. I couldn't make sense of anything anymore. It felt like I was walking through a labyrinth with no end in sight, every twist pulling me deeper into confusion. Suddenly, another distant scream pierced the darkness, accompanied by the sinister screech of tires. My heart dropped as the old woman gasped, clutching my arm. I shouldn't have let him take you out here. You're in danger. Before I could respond, I jolted as another shape emerged from the shadows at the gas station, a figure cloaked in darkness, moving with unnerving speed. Panic surged within me, and I tore my gaze away from the woman, searching for the biker who had just ventured into something I could only assume was chaos. Where is he? I breathed, my throat tightening. That he doesn't know what he's getting into. She whispered, fear crackling in her voice. At that moment, a flash of headlights burst through the tree line, illuminating the street with a blinding intensity. My breath caught as I realized the biker was racing back toward us, but not alone. He was followed by two figures, obscured in shadow but radiating a menacing energy that chilled my bones. No. You have to get out of here. The woman's voice cut through my fear, yanking me back to the present. But before I could act on her words, a massive figure stepped forward into the light. A brute cloaked in a trench coat, eyes glinting with cold malice. Thought you could run, huh? He sneered, his voice gravelly, sending ripples of dread through me. I could hear the biker shouting something, but it was drowned out by the pounding of my heart against my chest. Panic ignited within me. This wasn't the safety I had hoped for, it was a tempest ready to swallow me whole. I glanced back at the woman, her eyes wide as fear painted her features. Please, I stammered, desperation clawing at my throat. Tell me what's happening. Before she could answer, the diner door swung open once more, and a small, timid figure emerged. An older man with wild hair and a kind smile, as though he belonged to a different reality than the one I was trapped in. He stepped toward the confrontation, seemingly oblivious to the impending threat. Now, what's going on here? I felt the ground shake under my feet as the air crackled with tension. The biker was shouting again, his words lost to the chaos swirling around us. The feeling of impending dread swelled as the darkness closed in from every side, and the biker leapt in front of me, drawing a line of defense. What are you doing here, Harold? The brute barked at the old man, venom dripping from his words. You think you can interfere, just trying to help those who need it, Harold replied, his voice steady, as if he were mediating a misunderstanding instead of standing on the brink of violence. There's no need for this. My heart raced, pounding a rhythm of fear and confusion. I could see the biker's eyes darting between me and the menacing figures, uncertainty flickering in his expression. He was scared just like I was. Before I could comprehend the gravity of the situation, everything erupted into chaos. A fist flew towards the biker, and I instinctively screamed as my world shattered around me. In that moment, as I was immersed in turmoil and shock, a single, clear thought cut through the cloud of fear: I had placed my trust in the wrong person entirely. The chaos exploded around me like firecrackers on New Year's Eve. The biker barely had time to react as the brute's fist closed in on him, but he dodged, adrenaline fueling his movements. The follow-through sent the brute stumbling but did nothing to dim the darkness that surrounded us. I felt as though I were trapped in a nightmare, each flicker of pain ripping through the chaos, drawing me closer to a deep-seated fear of helplessness that had long been buried. The old man, Harold, moved toward the biker, his expression morphing from gentle concern to a fierce intensity. We need to get her out of here, he shouted, urgency lining his voice like an undercurrent. The shadows of the gas station flickered ominously behind him, and my chest tightened. I had never felt more like a pawn in someone else's game. Despite the surrounding tumult, I felt an odd sense of clarity settle over me. I couldn't remain paralyzed in panic any longer. Reflexively, I moved closer to the biker, my heart pounding a staccato beat. "What do we do?" I yelled, struggling to be heard over the shouts and the growls of unnecessary aggression. "I'll handle this," he said, a mixture of bravery and fear flashing across his face. The darkness had a way of twisting intentions, and in that moment, I wasn't sure who to trust. "Just stay behind me, stay behind him." The words hit me like a wave, drowning out the panic. My instincts screamed for clarity, but the world blurred around me. These weren't just shadows of men, they were manifestations of a danger I hadn't expected. Harold charged forward, sowing hope against despair. "This is between you and me, leave her out of it." He shouted at the brute, attempting to shield me from the swirling tempest. "Your time's up, old man," the brute snarled, readying himself for a new assault. Just as his hand reached for Harold, something unexpected happened. A flicker of movement darted from the left, and a petite woman with a skateboard flew past like a comet, crashing into the brute, sending him stumbling away. "Back off!" she shouted, her stance wide and defiant. For a moment, time stood still, caught in the shock of the unexpected act of courage. It was a brief illumination in the gathering dark, her fierce spirit kindling an ember of hope. "You don't get to hurt anyone here." The biker and I exchanged glances, each one shouting a silent question about the unknown intruder. Who was she? Just a girl? No, that fire in her eyes told a different story, but before we could digest the scene unfolding, the shadows began to regrouping like predators circling their prey. My thoughts spiraled wildly. Who knew kindness could manifest like this? A lone act of defiance ignited a flicker of ferocity within me. I didn't have time to decipher my thoughts, I needed to act. "Get back!" I shouted, my voice cracking, but filled with the urgency that broke through my fear. I took a step forward, my heart pounding with reckless determination, as all the doubt tangled within me began to unravel. "We can't let them drag us into this, no!" the biker cried, but it was too late. I could see the way their eyes narrowed at my boldness. Their attention shifted dangerously from Harold and the biker to me. A sharp grip seized my wrist, and suddenly I was being pulled away from the chaos, back toward the diner. The world blurred, friction igniting in my veins as everything I had trusted unraveled into pieces. "What are you doing?" I gasped, the dim light flickering overhead painting everything ominously. A soft voice broke through my panic, barely audible over the din. "You have to understand, this isn't just a fight. You're in deeper than you know." The old woman had come to my side, a look of urgency etched across her features. "Why? Why can't you just tell me?" I pleaded, helplessness curling in my throat. Her hand trembled as she released me, stepping closer as the biker faced off against the threatening figures once more. "Because sometimes, the truth hurts more than the lies. Keep your heart open, no matter how heavy it feels. You'll need it." The gravity of her words resonated with the chaos and pain swirling around us, and before I could grasp her meaning, she drifted back into the shadows. The world erupted again as fists collided and voices screamed. Time itself slowed, and I was painfully caught in a shell of uncertainty. Then, abruptly, the scene shifted. The skateboarder grabbed my arm, urgency igniting her eyes. "We can't stay here. They'll come for you next." The biker dodged another punch, spitting curses into the night. Yet amidst the chaos, my heart thudded against the ever-thickening walls of my panic. I couldn't trust my instincts anymore. "Wait!" I screamed, pulling away. "I need to know why this matters." My challenge hung in the air, a last desperate grasp at understanding, but words faltered as shadows surged, bearing down on us. In that moment, the biker shouted my name, a plea woven tightly with fear and protectiveness. I glanced back just once, seeing panic flicker in his eyes as everything exploded into violence once more. A cold wave washed over me as the realization sank deep like ice in my veins. I may have just lost everything that mattered. An unexpected voice cut through the cacophony. "There's no more time." And as I turned my head, a shocking revelation hit me like lightning. The biker wasn't the man he had claimed to be, and in my fight for survival, I was holding on to the very strands that could unravel everything. The din roared around me like a relentless storm, each crash of fists and shouts of pain echoing in my ears, drowning out the panic that constricted my throat. My world spun with confusion as I took a hesitant step back, the weight of the biker's unknown truths settling over me like a leaden cloak. What had I stumbled into? What was I sacrificing by questioning his identity at this crucial moment? Your name, who are you really? I shouted above the fray, desperate to pierce through the fog of violence that swallowed us whole. The words hit him like a slight gust in the midst of a hurricane, barely shifting the tempest that roared in his gaze, but the biker never answered. Instead, he surged forward, repeatedly deflecting incoming fists with an intensity that belied his determination. I could feel the strength radiating from him, but my heart twisted with doubt. One moment of kindness had ignited a fire in me, but who was I, really? Did I even know this man who shielded me from the cruel realities around us? Go! He shouted, his voice strained. Run! A momentary lull amidst the melee caught my breath. I should run, get far from this place where darkness thrived, but I felt rooted in place, suspended in indecision. The skateboarder gripped my arm tighter, her fierce determination contrasting sharply with my own mounting dread. We need to go now, and yet, running seemed like betrayal to him, to the old man defending me, to every flicker of courage that had sparked in the chaotic night. I can't leave him. Before the skateboarder could protest, Harold unleashed a wave of fury against the brute, drawing the other shadows toward him, distracting them momentarily. Their jeers dissolved into laughter that felt far too sinister. Whispers danced around me, teasing me with possibility, taunting me with the risk of knowing. But I had little time left. I could see the biker faltering, bloodied and weary, every parry showcasing the toll this battle exacted on him. The truth whispered to me, begging to be unearthed. Just trust me. My gut pleaded, the desperation flaring within. I released the skateboarder's grip, much to her shock, and lunged toward the biker. The biker glanced my way, his face a mask of confusion and urgency. No. Ignoring his warning felt like a reckless leap into a chasm into the unknown, with no assurance I'd land anywhere safe. Tell me who you are. I yelled again, desperate to eclipse the noise threatening to overwhelm us, but before he could respond, a fist connected with his side, forcing him to double over. My heart raced, and I felt the ground beneath me shifting into a quagmire of desperation. Just then, in the corner of my eye, I spotted the approaching figure's partner up, circling in for the kill. The skateboarder's voice, sharp as glass, broke through the roiling chaos. If you care about him, you need to trust us. Come on. The fighter in my chest wars with uncertainty as my gaze burned into the biker's, searching for confirmation, for a shift, an acknowledgement that I could trust him. Please, just tell me you'll be okay, I begged. And then, like a fading echo, a hint of vulnerability flickered across his rough features. You have to go. It won't end. My breath caught as the skateboarder yanked me backward, but I could hardly move, my legs willing me to stay rooted in this storm. The cries of betrayal battled against the pulse of the universe around us, and I felt the tendrils of something deeper, the ache of connection, forged from an unbreakable faith, drawing me closer to him. In that moment, I spotted something glinting dangerously. The brute's ally had retrieved a knife from his belt, its edge catching a glow from the dim light as he raised it. Panic surged through me, raw and immediate. Watch out! The biker's head whipped around, his eyes widening as he realized the immediate threat that loomed. Desperation clawed at my throat. How could we escape this fate? Before I could wrap my thoughts around a plan, Harold's booming voice pierced the air once more. Fierce and defiant, he charged toward the brute's ally with a primal roar, gathering what remained of his shattered strength. No. My heart thundered like a drum, unwilling to let them be pushed under by this violent tide. Just go. The biker cried, his voice hoarse but filled with an urgency that filled the very fibers of my being. And suddenly, it all crystallized. The fleeting moments of kindness had merged into a singular force that propelled me forward. I dashed toward the biker, my heart racing faster than the chaotic exchanges around us. The skateboarder's eyes went wide, fear and confusion threading through her expression, but the fierce determination brewing in me thundered beyond fear. As I neared him, those shadowy figures lunged forward, me world swept into a desperate haze. Instinct kicked in, my arm extended desperately toward the biker, the familiar weight of what it meant to hope colliding head-on with impending doom. If I stepped into the abyss, I had to risk everything. Just as the shadows descended upon us, a deafening sound broke through the cacophony. A gunshot rang out, chilling the air, followed by a moment of unnerving silence that I froze, awash in dread, as dread washed over me like a tide threatening to pull me under. I could taste the fear and uncertainty in the air. My next breath would bring unimaginable change. In that moment, a piercing thought shot through my mind. Sometimes, a single act of kindness could unfurl a pattern of chaos you never saw coming. Would we emerge from this alive? And more importantly, who would remain with me once the dust settled? The gunshot shattered the thin veil of hope that had encircled me. It resonated in the pit of my stomach, drowning out the sounds of struggle. The biker's face flickered between shock and desperation as he turned, eyes searching mine, and in that fleeting moment, I understood I didn't just want to save him, I needed to. Yet, the aftermath of the shot drew a new layer of terror over us. The world around me erupted into chaos. I could hear the clattering of feet scrambling, the shouts growing fevered, and the laughter of those who thrived on violence echoing like haunting specters through the air. "Are you okay?" The skateboarder's voice cut through the fog, urgency threading into her words as she tugged at my arm. But I felt paralyzed, caught in a sensory overload. The weight of the biker's pleading gaze bore down on me, unraveling my resolve to flee. His lips moved, a whispered plea that didn't reach my ears above the din. It felt as if time fractured, everything slowed, and I could see clarity shimmering through the chaos. I wasn't just in a fight for survival, I was a participant in something larger, something that challenged the very fabric of who I believed myself to be. The image of kindness ignited in me a glimmer of warmth amidst threat. No, I muttered, pushing against the skateboarder's grip. The urgency in her eyes felt like an anchor in a storm, but I needed to stay. I couldn't abandon him. Not now. Before I could change my mind, before the tide of decisions could drown me, I lunged forward. I intertwined my fingers into the biker's rough, calloused hand, a surreal connection amid the turmoil. A spark of defiance mixed with tenderness coursed between us, pulling me deeper into the moment, away from fear. Suddenly, an explosion of sound erupted from my side as Harold barreled into another assailant. The biker stumbled for balance, eyes darting between us as if weighing the gravity of our desperation. "Stay low," he managed, hoarse and strained, but as Harold fell to the ground, the chaos swirled tighter. Who did that? My mind raced, but I didn't have the time to process. The nightclub setting itself bore down with an unsettling weight, walls breathing chaos, shadows intertwining into cyclones of disbelief. I could discern the familiar silhouettes of the crowd shifting, hearts colliding in a dance of violence. "Help him!" I shouted, directing my voice toward Harold. The defiance held within me shifted like a tide, and my heart hammered with purpose. I wasn't stepping into his storm solely for bravery. The realization coursed through me: kindness had the power to create ripples that could deter even the darkest of tides. With a swift motion, I turned to the biker, determined to shield him even as fear gripped my veins. "Stay behind me. Don't you dare." His voice was laced with a mix of anger and protectiveness as he shoved me away just as another figure lunged. The fury in his eyes transcended the fear that infiltrated ours. "You need to go," but something in his tone led my heart to clash against that instinct to flee. "No. I won't abandon you." "Well, figure this out together." In that moment, the skateboarder stepped in, darting through the fray with deft movements. "We're outnumbered, we need to get somewhere safe." The urgency wrapped around us like a rope. We were bound, clinging to this thread of hope against the menacing storm. The figures around us swarmed in their chaotic dance, and yet, I felt a burgeoning resolve igniting in me, brighter than the fear coiling around my heart. Then, out of nowhere, a dull thud knocked me back. My world flipped as the skateboarder stumbled beside me, and I watched in horror as she crumpled to the ground under the weight of an unseen blow. "No!" I cried, instinctively reaching for her. "Keep moving." The biker roared, eyes fierce and unwavering, a shield forged from love and fear. But a cold knot of panic knotted my heart, intertwining with determination. "Help her. Please." I begged, the urgency spilling from me like a frantic plea. As the biker hesitated, his breathing ragged, I realized that every act of kindness, even the smallest ones, could forge connections that could save us all. I looked into his eyes, the depth of his pain mirroring my own. We were both too wounded to let the other fall. Just then, a flicker of light caught my attention. A figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette draped in armor of sorts. Was this hope or another cruel twist of fate? I squinted into the shadows, heart racing. It couldn't be Coldit, and then, the unmistakable voice broke through. "Get down." A whirlwind of instinct hit me as I ducked instinctively, but it was too late. The unexpected figure lunged forward, and before I could understand the outcome, a weight sat heavy on my chest, squeezing the breath from me like a vice. Shooting pain surged through my body, my vision blurring as everything faded into darkness. Had kindness led me here, or had it been the perilous step into a fate entwined with shadows? Everything faded into darkness, but the world around me pulsed like a distant heartbeat, silent yet deafening in its absence. Dread hung in the air, thick with uncertainty as I fought to regain consciousness. The numbness spread through my limbs, shackling me in a clench of fear and confusion. My senses struggled to penetrate the fog, but when clarity began to surface, a sensation washed over me that was both foreign and familiar, the taste of blood mingling with the acrid scent of smoke. "Please, stay with me." A voice cut through the suffocating silence, the urgency sending shivers racing down my spine. I fought against the darkness, forcing my eyelids open, but they felt like lead, heavy and unwilling to cooperate. "Don't you dare close your eyes." The voice pleaded again, more insistent, and I recognized it. The biker. His panic wrapped itself around my faltering spirit and pulled me into consciousness. I willed my eyes to focus, the world slowly sharpening into hazy contours as the dim light revealed the chaotic scene that surrounded us. His face, once tanned and strong, was now smeared with grime and painted worry. I could see the tremor in his hands as he cradled my head, a warm pressure grounding me amid the noise thrumming through the nightclub. "We need to get you out of here," he said, his voice lowered to a whisper, yet the intensity poured from him like an avalanche. "Stay with me, please." His kindness, the way it flickered amid the terror, gave me strength to slip further away from the suffocating grip of despair. I concentrated on my breath, inhaling the musty air tinged with the electric scent of fear. Each inhalation was an act of defiance, a rebellion against the fate that felt so certain moments ago. "There's too much blood," I murmured, the words barely audible, but the panic surged anew in his eyes, a wave that turned to a flood as I noticed the crimson pooling beneath me. "No, no, no." He shook his head violently, his determination faltering but not breaking. "It's not your time. You can't, I won't let it be." He gripped my hand, fingers interlacing with mine, warmth seeping through the coldness enveloping me. I forced my focus on his eyes, dark, stormy pools swirling with desperation. "But what about you?" I stammered. Despite my feeble protests, I felt the tether we shared deepen every moment, a link formed not just from survival but from a shared understanding of fragility among chaos. "That I am fine. I'll be fine, but you." His voice cracked as he pressed his forehead to mine, desperation morphing into a plea. "You're stronger than you think. You have to believe that. We can't lose now." A flicker of hope burned in me as his words ignited something long buried, a desire to fight, to rise above even the most preposterous odds. With an effort that felt monumental, I pushed against the weight of my body, trying to lift my head slightly, trying to engage with the storm that raged on around us. The sounds were still chaotic shouting, glass shattering, but amidst the cacophony was the profound resonance of life and the instinctual drive to hold on fiercely to each breath. "Where's Harold? The skateboarder?" My voice trembled as I searched the unfamiliar surroundings, the chaotic canvas of limbs and bodies, but he pulled me back, grounding me. I couldn't leave you. Well, find them. I promise, he breathed, hovering close, as if by sheer will alone he could keep me tethered to this life. But doubt crept in, shadows whispering that time was not on our side. Gritting my teeth, I forced myself to rise slightly. We have to go. I can't lead us from here if we don't at least try. As I spoke, the flickers of light surged in and out, revealing more than just the violence unfolding. There were glimpses of hope and safety, a handful of people rallying against the tide, their faces full of shared determination. But before I could consider our escape, the nightclub erupted with shouts, the sound of scuffling feet growing louder. Coming closer, panic gripped the biker. For a moment, it etched shadows of despair across his features. No. You're not going anywhere. But there was an unspoken understanding rising between us, that we were fighting not just to escape, but for every soul lost in the fray around us. Then suddenly, from the edges of the chaos, another figure emerged, tall, illuminated by the strobe lights, face obscured, but the weight of recognition crashed through me, awe mingling with terror. Please tell me that's not Get Down. The voice echoed, familiar yet haunting, cutting through the turbulence as a surge of dread turned my stomach to ice. A flash of movement amalgamated into fragments of terror as I braced for the worst. Instead, a familiar facia presence from before the storm leapt into the fray, crashing towards us with a purpose that left no time for explanations. In that moment, I felt the ground beneath shift, and with it, the tangled strands of fate that held us captive unraveled just enough to allow a spark of hope amid encroaching shadows. But uncertainty loomed like a specter, and the way forward darkened further as I grasped at fleeting moments that promised salvation yet remained shrouded in dread. What awaited me in the echoes of this storm? Before I could muster an answer, the ground shook once more as the shadows tightened their grip around my heart, and I realized that the journey ahead would demand not just kindness, but an unyielding will to face the rising tide of uncertainty that sought to drown us all. As the familiar figure barreled toward us, adrenaline surged through my veins, electrifying the air around me. It was Emma. Her face, usually vibrant and full of life, now wore a mask of urgency paired with determination. Instinctively, I had hoped she'd simply drift away from this chaos, yet here she was running toward danger with the kind of courage that made my heart pound. Over here. We need to get them out. She shouted, her voice cutting through the tumult surrounding us. The biker instinctively tightened his grip on my hand, fear flickering in his eyes as he recognized the weight of the situation escalating around us. Emma. I yelled, hoarse and desperate. Help us. As she approached, I caught glimpses of her resolve, even through the glare of the ominous lights, and something inside me ignited a small ember of hope amidst the impending storm. What are you doing here? I managed to choke out, feeling both relief and worry intertwine within me. That I was just passing by when I heard the commotion, she replied breathlessly. I can't believe you're here. Wait, are you okay? Her eyes darted down to the blood pooling beneath my body, and for an agonizing heartbeat, I saw her composure falter. I'll be fine, Emma, I insisted, forcing the words through gritted teeth. Every fiber of my being ached, but I could not allow her to see my vulnerability, if not for my sake, then for the fierce biker beside me, who was holding back the emotional tide that threatened to swallow us all. Behind Emma, I caught sight of others, two strangers rallying together, forming a line of defense against the chaos spilling forth. They stood resolute, each face reflecting the shadows of fright but also an undeniable spark of courage. Help me lift him. Emma called, breaking my reverie and shifting the focus back to our escape. The biker nodded, and together we maneuvered, albeit painfully, to sit upright as Emma positioned herself beside me, her proximity warming the cold dread gnawing at my insides. I squeezed the biker's hand tighter, tethering myself to the strength emanating from him, from the crew of strangers around us. We have to create a way out. We can't stay here, I said, my voice stronger now as I scanned the sidelines for any opportunity. On three, we move. Emma called, the determination in her eyes fueling my conviction. 1, 2, 3. With synchronized effort, we levered one another off the ground, my limbs awash with the piercing pain of movement as adrenaline coursed through me. I hadn't realized how tightly the dread had coiled around my chest until we bolted for the exit, navigating through the throngs of people, still battling amid the screaming chaos, but the realization came crashing down like thunder: outside the doors lay uncertain safety. The outside world suffered no less from tumult. Squalls of flashing lights illuminated the dark sky, revealing distant sirens blaring as they beckoned us closer. A moment of stillness enveloped as I staggered into the night, breathless and bruised but alive. However, that moment shattered as I felt the biker halt beside me, and his expression twisted into horror as he stared back into the nightclub, eyes widening in realization. "Harold!" he exclaimed, panic spilling into his voice as if the very sound sliced through the night. "He's still in there." My heart sank as an avalanche of fear replaced the fleeting hopes I had cultivated moments earlier. "But if we go back," I started, but the words fell away as the biker stared at me, resolute, his determination cloaked in desperation. "You can't expect me to leave him." His voice trembled, the shadows once again curling around his features. Each heartbeat seemed to mark the growing urgency yet commanded silence. The flickering lights of chaos behind us paled in comparison to the uncanny solemnity that had enveloped our collective spirits. "Please," Emma urged, stepping closer, sensing the tumult in the air. "We can work together. If we can just hold on a moment longer, we can find him." But the stillness before the storm ignited in an instant. A scream erupted from the nightclub, followed by a cacophony of chaos. The bar's windows shattered violently, glass raining down like deadly confetti. "Run!" a voice pierced through the commotion, sending shockwaves of adrenaline through me as I turned on my heel, panic igniting new energy within my core. And then the biker hesitated, torn between duty and survival. "I can't go without him," he cried, anguish echoing in his tone, desperation stretching taut in the air like a tightrope threatening to snap any moment. Every instinct in my body urged me to escape, but the weight of their friendship pressed upon my chest like a stone. "Well, find him," I urged, knowing the resolve behind the words, yet feeling the ground shift again beneath me. What if we couldn't? With time slipping through our fingers, I made the choice that would haunt me. Grabbing his arm, I pulled him away, past the shouts and the crashing sound of desperation that grew louder with each passing second. We staggered back, deeper into the night, the potential loss stretching ahead like an uncertain horizon, every heartbeat thickening with the conceit of hope and despair. Yet as we stumbled toward a new beginning, a new wave of chaos erupted. From the shadows of the nightclub emerged something unexpected, a figure silhouetted against the light, unyielding and determined, holding a skateboard in hand. The air froze, charge woven into the strands of fate. Could this be Harold? Hopeful yet apprehensive, dread coiling anew around my heart, I knew that we stood at a precipice, teetering between evacuation and the uncharted dangers that awaited. The journey had just begun. The silence that descended when the figure emerged felt surreal, like fresh air filling lungs long deprived of hope. With every tentative step closer, the details sharpened, the disheveled hair, the ragged clothes, and then the unmistakable eyes, wide and frantic, glazed with a mix of courage and fear. It was Harold, skateboard in hand, a reckless promise glinting in his gaze. "Get down!" he shouted, though it seemed the warning echoed in slow motion. All of our instincts screamed to obey as he launched himself down to the ground beside us, skateboard slamming against the pavement like a drumbeat of urgency. That I exchanged glances with the biker, the unspoken realization passing between us: Harold was alive. "We thought you were the biker," started, strained with relief but interrupted by a thunderous crash from within the club, driving us to the ground instinctively. "Get up. We need to go now," Harold urged, eyes darting frantically. I was just about to take a skate through the back alley when all hell broke loose. "I saw the whole thing." "What do you mean, you saw the whole thing?" I questioned, the confusion mingling with the reverberating fear buried deep inside me. "Just follow me," Harold shouted once more, interrupting my thoughts as he sprang to his feet and pointed down the grimy walkway beside the gas station. "My buddy Leo has a van, we can slip away. It's safer than standing here." Reluctantly, we followed. The night air was thick with anticipation, and each step felt like a perilous negotiation with fate. The siren's wails had intensified, the piercing sound filling the shadows as we slipped past the remnants of the chaos that insisted we turn back, to seek clarity amid confusion. Nothing had ever felt more uncertain, and yet, a flame of gratitude flickered within me for this unexpected act of bravery. Harold had saved us, barely comprehending the depth of danger we still faced. As we rounded the corner, I caught sight of the van parked askew, its engine humming like a promise as Leo, a lean figure with anxious eyes, stood beside it. "What took you guys so long?" he quipped nervously, glancing back at the erratic lights pulsing from the bar. Harold gestured fiercely, his voice rising above the clamor of chaos behind us. "Get in. We can't waste time." They're right behind us. Reluctantly, I turned back for a final glance at the nightclub, the possibility of returning a burden I would carry. The fragmented glass dimmed in the distance, as if it reached for the last echoes of laughter, now submerged beneath the chilling screams resonating like a final requiem. "Do we know if anyone else is in there?" I asked, my voice erupting from the reservoir of fear I thought was left behind. "That we can't wait," the biker stated firmly, the strength in his eyes barely masking the tremor in his voice. "We'd only be putting ourselves in danger." "I am not leaving anyone behind," Harold snapped, his resolve hardening. "There could be others, Harold, please." Emma's voice implored, cutting through the din like a lifeline. "We have to make a choice. More people in there means more danger. We can't risk it." The tension coiled tighter as silence momentarily blanketed us. The consequences of indecision expanded within the vulnerable space between us, the choice lurking heavily in the air like smoke that we piled awkwardly into the van, the chaos outside closing in as Harold pressed on the gas, the engine roaring like an angry beast. I glanced back one last time. Flames flickered ominously in the shattered window, illuminating the faces of those inside, the clarity of their despair casting a shadow that stretched uncomfortably into my heart. With each passing moment, the distance between us and the nightclub grew, but the gnawing uncertainty remained, digging into the fabric of our escape. I knew it wasn't just the fear of what might come, but what we might have had to confront and relinquish to the night that churned outside our protective metal walls. "Where do we go from here?" I asked softly, feeling the numbness mingle with fear as our world shifted out of control. "Anywhere but here," Leo replied, his grip on the wheel tightening. "Just keep your heads down. We'll get you to safety." That we drove in silence, the weight of our thoughts pressing heavily as we sped away, the lights from the nightclub falling behind us like a fading heartbeat. But the shadows, they were not just what we'd left behind, they were woven into the very fabric of our becoming. As the van took another sudden turn, Harold's anxious glances triggered a sense of foreboding. What if the unspeakable hung suspended among us, until suddenly one piercing distant sound broke through the haze, reverberating with chilling clarity. A desperate scream shattered the night, rising from the depths of the chaos we had sought to escape, a new threat clamoring for our attention as danger lurked ever closer. I felt the shadows creeping in once more, the dread swallowing the flickering glimmers of hope, revealing the undeniable truth. Something beyond this escape awaited us, a deeper battle we were yet to endure. What if we hadn't truly escaped at all? The realization tightened in my chest as the van lurched around a corner, stopping abruptly as we caught sight of yet another chaos unfolding. A heated car overturned, flames licking in the night, a haunting symbol of our torment, and then the horrifying realization: what if this was merely the beginning? The van shuddered to a stop, its headlights casting an eerie glow on the scene, a tangled wreck, flickering with fiery tongues licking the darkness, while the distant wail of sirens drew closer and louder. Each new sound seemed to amplify the chaos within me, igniting the memories of that terrible night, a night where every choice felt like a billowing cloud of smoke that clouded judgment and smothered hope. Is everyone all right?" Harold's voice cut through the thick air inside the vehicle, urgent yet layered with anxiety. Emma turned, her face pale under the overhead light, her eyes filled with an unfathomable mix of fear and determination. The biker, beside me, had drawn close again, raw vulnerability etched into the lines of his face. It was like watching a storm wave crash overhead, knowing the impact would change everything. "I don't know, man, we should turn back," Leo said, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles glowed white against the dim light. "People might need help." The van trembled with rising tension, a pressure cooker brewing in the middle of a storm. "Every minute we hesitate is another minute those behind us close in," replied the biker, his voice a deep rumble of stark resolve. A flicker of recognition sparked between Harold and him, an understanding forged from their shared past and forged anew in the fires of desperation, but my heart ached deep, its rhythm a painful thrum echoing with the memories of seconds lost, choices made in fleeting desperation. I had already watched the chaos unfold in our aim to escape. How had I become yet another weight for them to carry? The shadows weren't merely remnants of what we'd evaded, they had wrapped around our choices, haunting and threatening to consume us whole. That we don't know what's waiting for us if we turn back. We just can't risk it, Emma whispered, yet her voice fluttered with uncertainty, the fear of the unknown rearing up anew. That I feel it. I let the words slip past my lips, each one filled with both dread and determination, a desperate act for solidarity. We can't leave anyone behind. Not now. Not when we have a chance. Their faces shifted, shifting like the shadows outside. But I was no longer about to let the fear dictate my choice. I found my gaze locked on the biker, who had become a tether in this chaotic storm. In not leaving him, the unspoken connection bound us even tighter as we exchanged a gaze full of desperate hope. Their pain was mirrored in my resolve, and at that moment, we understood, there are battles only some choose to fight. Stay together. Focus. Harold's urgency hung in the air, a call to action, an understanding that we could be the lifeline those behind us so desperately needed. And for the first time in the whirlwind of chaos, a flicker of purpose ignited within, pushing through the fears threatening to drown me whole. Let's go. Together, the biker nodded, the forest of his emotions swirling within his gaze, and in unison, we piled out of the van. The flames from the wreck beckoned us like fireflies caught in a tempest, illuminating the panic-ridden faces of those within. As we approached, the scent of smoke clung to our skin, thick and suffocating. That a muffled cry cut through the night, punctuated by the heavy thud of metal denting against the pavement. My heart lurched as we neared the overturned vehicle, the sound of someone inside pleading. I felt the urgency thrumming in my veins. Can anyone hear me? The question fell into the abyss, now more than ever a lifeline in the darkness. Help is coming. The biker shouted, his voice filled with strength he likely didn't know he had, and I felt that determination swirl within me, shaping a resolve I didn't know was possible. Another anguished scream echoed around us, and without a second thought, I dove low, hands grasping the burning metal edge, trying to lift it off. The flames flickered dangerously close, brushing against skin. We need to shift this. I shouted. Now the danger loomed larger than just the flames, it was imminent. We were perhaps stepping into danger far more chaotic than we had anticipated. As the biker joined me, our bodies strained against the weight of the car, the metal creaked and groaned under our frantic efforts. I could feel the sweat pooling in my palms, urgency tightening my chest like a vice grip. Just a bit more. Harold encouraged, merging his strength alongside ours, his voice a steadying presence amidst discord. The shadows loomed around, but we pushed them aside. This mission mattered more than the fear swelling in our hearts. Just as the metal shifted, pulling back with an agonizing screech, hope surged. Flickered in the distance like a lighthouse guiding through the storm. I see you. Emma called, leaning against the car, her voice unwavering. We're almost there. Our movements synchronized as we pulled with all our might, bracing against the heat that crashed over us. One last heave brought a groan from the car until at last, it fell away, unveiling the passenger, crumpled and gasping. Relief filled my heart like a tidal wave, but panic surged anew as I realized who the passenger was. The familiar face appeared through the haze, full of shock and fear, the tears streaming down their cheeks compelling the shadows to release their grip. It was Emma's younger brother. Get him out. I urged, barely able to form the words as the biker seized hold of him, pulling him from the wreckage like a knight saving his charge. The flames roared behind us, our desperation electrifying the air, and then, in that moment, everything shifted. A feeling stronger than fear surged, knitting us together as we fought our way through darkness. As we dragged him from the wreck, a familiar warmth surrounded us, rapping against the uncertainty. That flicker, that echo of hope, a reminder that kindness could manifest amidst chaos. Clara. His voice rang out, and through the chaos, those familiar eyes that had looked upon me in fear now glimmered with gratitude. You came for me. Each word held weight stronger than steel, binding our fates together in that unfathomable uncertainty. but before I could answer, the distant sounds of scuffles hunger closer, and each second felt like a lifetime as we faced the daunting task of escaping the impending maw of darkness etched with despair sewing itself tighter around us. "We can't stay. The fire's spreading." Emma's voice cut through the air, urgent, forcing us back into motion just as another bolt of sound shot through the stillness. The familiar sound of approaching sirens mixed with the colliding shadows, leaving little time for hesitation, but hope had taken root, a fragile bloom amidst chaos. We hurried, weaving through the smoke and fury, our steps mirrored a heartbeat reunited by an unrelenting trust, the bonds of kindness drawing us closer, stitching us back together against a tapestry of fear. And as we emerged from the smoke, into the uncertain light ahead, I grasped their hands firmly, determination shining through. "We are not leaving anyone behind again. Not now." As we plunged deeper into the night, surrounding the flames, I could feel the essence of hope intertwining with our footsteps, emerging from the shadows, a reminder that sometimes, amidst the chaos, it's not just survival that binds us together, it's the moments, small yet mighty, that wield the strength to push back against the dark and the echoing silence that enveloped us. Just as we reached the roadside ahead, a shooting star grazed the sky, a fleeting token of kindness glimmering in the darkness, a chorus of laughter forging memories deep within me. And in that precise moment, all of our hearts clashed together, hearts beating in sync, spirit igniting with the orb of hope that flickered anew, reminding us, our story did not end here, it was just the beginning. Because together, we could summon the strength to face the darkness. We had survived this storm, and as dawn approached, I discovered what it meant to truly rise again.